Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Antonini. I am the instructor for Science and Values Philosophy 3260, the course that officially begins tomorrow. The purpose of this video is to introduce myself to you all and to talk to you a little bit about the course. I think under the circumstances of this pandemic, it's important that you all at least see me. Um, and see who I am. There is a you see my little picture on canvas, but there is a living, breathing human being on the other end of that. And so I just wanted to say hi to you all, and kind of welcome you to the class a little bit. Something that you would normally get on the first day of physical in-person classes, but unfortunately, for the time being, we have online class. Anyways, I just want to say hi and tell you a little bit about the class. So let me say a little bit about myself first. Um, Again, my name is David Antonini. I am originally from Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to be specific. I lived there until I was 25. Then I went to graduate school um, at the University of Southern Illinois in Carbondale, Illinois. And I was there for 7 years, getting my PhD in philosophy. And then I came to Clemson in the fall of 2018. So I'm beginning my third year at Clemson. And so let me say a little bit about my history and experience with this course. When I got to Clemson in the fall of 2018, I was hired at the very last minute over the summer in 2018, and I was given this course called Science and Values. And typically, people that are in academia do have to teach courses that are outside of their research interests, but I did not have any specific background in this particular field, science and values, that made me particularly well equipped to. I don't have a training in science formally, anyways, I was kind of given the course as part of my job, but I have now taught the course. I teach 2 sections every fall semester. I also taught 2 sections of the course this past summer. So I've taught the course a number of times now, and I think I've learned a little bit about how to do the course and the best way to do it, the best way to organize it. And so I do have that experience now, even though I was new to the course initially. I do have that experience having taught it a number of times. Um, so let me just say a bit about how I think about this course, what the goal of this course is, what the purpose of this course is, and why you all are required to take it as science majors. Now, there's a large number usually of biochemistry and genetics majors. That's usually the largest percentage of individuals taking the class. But of course, I know that over the summer I had a lot of psychology majors. So it's not only the physical and the hard sciences, it's also the social sciences as well. And so there are a lot of you with science backgrounds, but not all of you, mean the same thing by science, of course. But So let me just say a bit about the course. First of all, something I have learned as I've taught this course is that there is an expectation of students coming into the course that they expect it to be a kind of traditional uh, course in something like applied ethics or bioethics, especially because, in my experience, a lot of you majoring in biochemistry and genetics are planning to go to medical school. I have students all the time when I teach this class who end up having to miss class because they are going to medical school interviews. I think you might have an expectation that that's what this course is. Unfortunately, that is not what the course is. There are elements of it, but that is a course that the philosophy department offers called bioethics, where you might deal with more traditional questions about ethics as it applies to the clinical setting. Whereas this course takes a broader view of the relationship between science and values. It doesn't presuppose anything about the fact that individuals are going into the medical field. And so that's not what this course is. There is a course, and so in some ways that's not my choosing, but I didn't choose the curriculum that's offered at Clemson, but I am teaching this course with the idea that it's not a bioethics course because the department offers a course in bioethics. In fact, that's being offered this current semester. So that's just one thing I want to get out of the way up front, because I do think students often have that expectation. But let me say something about the course itself. Science and values itself is the name of a subfield within a branch of philosophy called the philosophy of science. So there's this broader field within philosophy proper, or there's this subfield within philosophy called the philosophy of science. And then within the philosophy of science, there is a special way of thinking about topics within the philosophy of science called science and values. And so this course is the name of the course itself is a field of study. And why is this something that's of philosophical interest? Well, science and values is on its face, it puts what many regard science as largely a fact-based empirical endeavor. Fact-based and empirical versus value considerations, which by their very nature are not empirical and are not fact-based. And so what the course is doing is it's taking two areas of human inquiry: science, fact-based; values, non-fact-based, and asking what the relationship should be between them. Because at least intuitively, if I was to ask some of your intuitive reactions to science and values, you might think that there should not be a relationship between them, that science should remain value-free, which is to say, not influenced by value considerations. That scientists are simply engaged in the practice of recording facts about the world, making predictions about those based on the facts that they collect, making observations. And insofar as that's what scientists are doing, they do not need to engage in questions of value. That is one view you could take. Now, as we're going to discover later in the course, that view is hard to defend and maintain. That it is maybe conceptually true that science and values are separate, but in practice, rarely can that separation be achieved. And so maybe the question might be, why should we even want to desire there to be a separation between science and values in the first place? So just to kind of recap what I just said there, big picture, the reason for this course is that science historically, and in maybe even culturally, in the larger sort of public imagination, science is thought of as somehow immune from value considerations. But yet, science in its practice, unfortunately, ends up being influenced by values all the time. And so the question is trying to figure out what should the proper relationship be between science and values, given their inevitable interaction with each other. Given that they cannot necessarily remain separate in practice, and given that there is an inevitability about their interaction, the question is, how can we figure out how values can appropriately affect science and how they might inappropriately affect science? And the question is, can we come up with any kind of ethical guidelines or ethical recommendations about the proper influence of values on science? Now, let me just give you, so this is all very abstract, let me just give you an example. We're currently living through a pandemic, and in some ways, the clash of science and values has come to the forefront more than I could have ever imagined as I teach this course. You see the you see the tension between science and values playing out every single day in as you walk outside, for example. Maybe you don't see somebody wearing a mask because they don't trust scientific expertise. They're distrustful of science. You see prominent scientists on the television screen communicating with the public about how they should and shouldn't act when it comes to their behavior so that they can avoid spreading the disease further. And so, science and values, if you didn't have a sense of what it was about, it's right in your face every day. And so, one consideration we might think about this, this guy, Dr. Anthony Fauci, who's constantly, his name has become very, like a household name ever since this pandemic started earlier this year. And so, one question we might think about later this semester, just to give you an example, is how should Dr. Fauci allow value considerations to inform the way that he communicates with the public? So, should Dr. Fauci simply report the facts as he knows them, the facts about the virus, and the facts about how it's transmitted? And should he simply stick to the facts? Or should he, because this is a public health emergency, how much should he's making these recommendations as a scientist, but he's at the same time he's acting as a public advocate. So he's not just a scientist, he's also an advocate for certain ways of behaving. And ways of behaving deal with our values. And so he can't simply be the reporter of facts to the public. He has to be influenced by values given the nature of a pandemic, but yet some might criticize him that he's been maybe too influenced by values, or maybe he hasn't been enough. But it seems like the criticism for Fauci is that he's allowing values to influence him too much. He's being accused of being too political, for example. So, anyways, that's just one question. That when scientists have to communicate with the public, how do they balance their duty as a scientist to report facts with their duty as an advocate to make the public aware of certain troubling information so that they will behave in certain ways? So that's just one example. But that comes later in the semester. Let me just say a bit more about what you're going to be reading for next week, how the course is going to start. We're going to start the course for 2 or 3 weeks thinking about what is science? What is the nature of science? Is there something essential about the activity of science? That is a traditional philosophical question. What is the nature of X? That is a very common philosophical question going all the way back to Plato. Plato would ask, what is X? Is there something essential about it? Such that if we know something about this thing's essential nature, then we can identify particular instances of it. So we're dealing with that. We're going to be thinking about Francis Bacon, and then in the 20th century, 2 other kind of philosophers answering this question are Karl Popper and Thomas Kuhn. So over the next couple weeks, that's what you're going to be reading about. And then, I'm not gonna right now give you a preview for the entire course, but I will say that by the beginning of October, we will shift more into questions that I was just discussing. So it's inevitable, and it would be, I think, on my part, irresponsible if I did not make at least part of this course about the pandemic. That it's a rare occasion when, especially in philosophy, I would say, it's a rare occasion when a course is so incredibly timely. And indeed, this summer, I got to teach the course almost exclusively with a focus on the pandemic. And so while I realize that, the pandemic affects all of you personally, it's affecting, your ability to even come back to Clemson and resume your lives as normal. It's the reason I'm having to make this lecture video. The pandemic has left no part of our life untouched. And so I want to say ahead of time that the course is not only about the pandemic, but given the title of the course and what's going on in the world, it is inevitable, and I think indeed it would be irresponsible of me for this course not to be, in some significant way, about philosophical questions that arise as a result of the pandemic. And you'll see on the syllabus that that comes up largely by the beginning of October, but it's going to come up in other contexts too. I'm at about, coming up on 16 minutes here, and I don't want this to go too long. It's just an introductory video. I'm not going to necessarily go into specific details about the syllabus today. I did send you the syllabus. I hope you've had a chance to look at it. I've also created a discussion post for this week earlier today, so I hope you'll take a look. And if you have any questions, let me know. That's going to be due by Sunday at midnight. And also, I want to say another thing about the Zoom meetings. When classes got pushed suddenly online in the spring, I chose not to do any synchronous Zoom meetings with my students because I thought that given how quickly you had to transition, going home, moving away from campus, potentially, having to take care of nieces and nephews and loved ones and things like that, I didn't do any synchronous. It was all asynchronous. And I thought about that coming into the fall about the best way to do it. And I created the survey. The compromise is that I do want to do one Zoom meeting per week. And in some ways, again, it's an ethical question itself. I'm not requiring attendance. I will not ask each of you on your little screen to raise your hand and say you're here, because I don't think it's fair to require attendance at a virtual meeting for any number of practical considerations, Wi-Fi, etc. But they are strongly recommended. And the purpose of the Zoom meetings will vary. Often you'll have a quiz on Monday. So it will give us it'll give you guys a chance to ask me questions about what's going to be on the quiz and things like that. But I don't intend on treating them as just a chance for me to lecture in an online environment. I don't think that's the best purpose of the Zoom meetings. So we're gonna experiment with using the Zoom meetings in different ways. I will potentially put you into the breakout rooms, which is not necessarily something I even know how to do. But my decision was to hold them regularly on Fridays at our class time, and I am strongly recommending that you attend them because I think this isn't an abrupt transition. You've known that you are doing online classes since Clemson made the decision in July to switch for at least the first month. And so I think you have enough preparation to know that these meetings are going to be held on Fridays and that I can't expect you to be there. But I want to just say ahead of time, it will be something new for me. It's not something I've done before. So there will be a learning curve, and hopefully we can kind of, figure that out together. That's all I have for today. By Friday, please have read the syllabus and let me know if you have any specific questions about it. I'm not going to go into any more detail about the syllabus. You have it. You can read it. The goal of Friday will be to talk about the syllabus and then to do some more general discussion about the course. That's all I have. If you have any questions, let me know. I hope you're all doing well. I realize the circumstances are not ideal, but I do want to welcome you to the course officially, and I do hope that that you get a lot out of it this semester. And I will talk to you all soon.